But you got to show this BGP thing, man. I've got to see the entire internet routing table running BGP on your laptop and like pulling the whole routing table into CML. That's mad.
Yeah. So as you can tell over here, I have a bunch of XRD devices. There's just 2 running right now. The third one is off.
I mean, it's amazing because you got all these looking glasses on the internet. But if someone's studying for their NP or IE or something, I mean, the fact that you can do that, like just get a full feed and run it on your laptop. I mean, that's really impressive.
Running on my laptop inside of a VM on my laptop inside of CML.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a bit of like the Inception thing.
Exactly, it's Inception. Everyone, it's David Bumble back with Ralph from the CML team. Ralph, great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Really great to be back here.
At the moment, we're on 2.8 of CML, but I believe you've got a 2.9 version that you can demonstrate, perhaps, like a preview.
It is kind of a developer build that is running on my laptop, so it's not really super polished, but some of the things that we are planning to have in 2.9, they're already in there, and they are really cool to show.
You were telling me offline, there's some really, really cool stuff. So I don't want to steal your thunder, but it's something to do with Docker, I believe?
Yeah, I mean, in 2.9, we're going to have Docker support, and Docker support opens up an entire new world for us because of all the Docker containers that are out there. For example, there's Docker containers that are running operating system like in a container instead of a VM, which has a huge resource advantage here. And also we are planning to introduce like a lot of those little service containers that make the life of someone who learns or like who studies much more easier, because again, those things are spinning up in an instant and they are very versatile. They are like, very specific to a specific problem to solve, like a Firefox container with a browser in there, or like a syslog container, or a Radius container, or a TACX container, something like that. And that is something that already works and that I am, that I'm excited to show.
Now, Ralph, you were showing me something that's really, really cool. So just for everyone who's watching, I was amazed to hear this yesterday when Ralph shared it. You running the entire internet routing table on a Docker container on your CML, on your laptop, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there is, right now, my CML instance runs on my laptop. Okay, my laptop has 32 gigs of memory, but my actual CML VM is running inside of 12 gigabytes of memory and has like, I think, 4 CPUs or something assigned. So it's a fraction of my laptop. It's not using the entire space on my laptop. And I'm running a few of XRD containers. So like those are iOS XR service provider grade routers that are running inside of a container inside of my CML. And I have a BGP feed from the internet that goes into one of these devices. And I have roughly 1 million prefixes in that device, which is my personal looking glass, if you will.
That's amazing. So before we get to that, because I want you to really go deep into that, can you show us perhaps the Firefox container? You also got Splunk running as well.
Right. Yeah, that's another one. I mean, we try to find those things that exist in the Cisco universe that are already available as containers, which makes it really easy to integrate them into an environment like CML with the Docker container support. So Splunk is one of them. Splunk is a relatively heavy thing, so that container image is almost 7.5 gigabytes in size. So like comparatively speaking, a Nginx or something is whatever, 100 megabytes. So quite big.
Lightweight, yeah.
But it also works within the constraints of my CML instance here. And of course, the demo license that is in there, that's just I think it's limited to a couple of thousand events, whatever, in a certain time span, a day or an hour or something, I don't know for sure. But to explore how it works and to see something happening and to learn how do I set it up? How do I configure it? It's a perfect solution for like people to start learning what Splunk is, what Splunk can do. There's a 1,000 eyes agent that we integrated. That's easy to do. And I guess there's a universe, right, of things that we can do.
Enough talking, Ralph. You got to do the demo. Can you show us the Firefox perhaps, and then show us like Splunk running, and then I really want to get to the BGP or any other cool stuff that you've got to show us.
All right. Yeah, so what I have here is, as I said, my CML instance, and I can show you guys. I mean, this has 12 gigabytes of memory. It has, I lied, it's 6 CPUs that are assigned to it, so it's, but still, not the world, right? Right over here, I have like an unmanaged switch and 2 devices, 1 Nginx containers. So I'm going to start this Firefox container here, and as you can see, it instantly boots. Like it gets the green check mark like right after it started, and boom, it's there. So I can open up VNC. this startup screen here. So we're going to have something where we can provide the URL right away so that you get to the page that you want to be. In this case, I need to enter it manually. So I put it up here, 10.253.0.80. Those are static addresses that I put into these devices just to have some predictability. And this is the output that came from Nginx. I mean, this is just a sample web page, nothing to be seen here otherwise. But you can study things like, what HTTP does, like going back and forth with the built-in packet capture and that stuff.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned that, right? Because you can run Wireshark through all these things and see what's going on.
Or if you like reboot a machine or something, you can see like all the DHCP exchanges that happen between the server and the client. And all of that stuff is really super easy to replicate and to learn and study. Now, the other thing that I have in here is, as I said, is Splunk. So we go to this guy here and go to the serial console of it. You can see that like while it booted, it actually runs an Ansible script, an Ansible playbook to configure everything within this container. But once this is done, this takes a couple of minutes until it's done and initialized all the databases and that kind of stuff. We can now go to the browser again, VNC, and now we can go and type in the address of Splunk on IP 100, port 8000. And this gets us to the login screen, so I can log in 1, 2, 3. So this is a password that I configured in the configuration of that container.
Yep.
We can set environment variables and these kind of things so that most of these containers, they have some sort of configuration which usually goes into environment variables, and we can do all of that stuff within the Docker environment for CML as well. I log in here and I get the Splunk dashboard. I'm not a Splunk expert, so like I leave it there. So
yeah, but the point is you got it running in a container,
right,
in CML.
In
you can
CML,
add it to your
on
network.
My laptop,
exactly.
In 12 gigabytes of memory. And this is not something that takes thousands of events or something per second. This is just for...
It's great for learning though.
How does it work?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that is that. And as I said before, we are having other plans about syslog, TACAX. So TACAX already exists. FreeRadius does exist. And there is probably also we are hoping for people to actually contribute to these things. Like if you have something that is interesting, like putting on the node definition on CML Community page, that is something to extend this entire ecosystem, right?
Yeah, so you tell us about that, because I don't know if people are aware of that. So can people submit their configuration files and share that so that everyone can make use of those?
Yeah, there is the CML Community, which is actually a GitHub repository, so a Cisco DevNet. So that sits on the Cisco DevNet CML Community, and that has a ton of different things. Like there is node definitions, which is the thing that I was talking about. So where people can contribute the definition, the shape of a node. That is basically the glue between CML and like a vendor or third-party disk image, for example, or a Docker container for that matter. So there is already a ton of those in there. There is also lab topologies in there. So for example, for ccna prep, Hank Preston just recently uploaded another episode to his season 2. I think he was talking about DNS. So he did something about DHCP. So there's a lot of stuff already in there that includes like description and guides and tasks and all of that stuff, which can be directly imported into CML. And most of them, I think they also work with the free version. So there's some kind of synergy there going on.
That's brilliant. Any other cool Docker containers that you can think of?
Well, as I said, the thing that we are currently looking at here is XRD. Now, the caveat here is that XRD exists as a Docker container on CCO. We are, at this point in time, we are not 100% sure whether we can bundle it with CML, but it for sure works with CML. So and that's what I'm having.
But it opens up a whole world, right, with Docker containers.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of other, vendors that offer network devices in Docker format, and that entire ecosystem is the valuable part that we are adding here.
But you got to show this BGP thing, man. I've got to see the entire internet routing table running BGP on your laptop and pulling the whole routing table into CML. That's mad.
Yeah. So as you can tell over here, I have a bunch of XRD devices. There's just 2 running right now. The third one is off. I guess that would put it a bit towards the limit. So I have 2 running. I have this NAT device here, which basically hides everything behind my laptop's IP address. So there's multiple levels of NAT happening right here inside of CML on my laptop, on the venue, because we are here in Cisco Live, and then out to the internet, right? So, but basically, this guy has a configuration with a BGP peering to some router that sits on the internet, and where it pulls a full BGP feed into this device that runs inside of CML here. So I can open up the console for this device.
You've got to do like a show IP BGP summary or something where we can see all those, like the number of routes that you're running.
Yeah, and I'm going to exit here and then just start from here. So I can log into this device, Cisco, and I see a show IP BGP summary. And you see that I have a connection to this neighbor, and it says prefixes received 966,000, so almost 1 million of prefixes.
That's crazy.
And if I do a show IP route, I mean, I get pages of pages of pages.
Yeah,
you don't want
exactly.
to scroll
It's
through
gonna go on
everything
forever,
like this. Yeah, indeed. And now, like one of the fun things that you can do, because this is basically your personal looking glass at this point in time, you can go to your terminal, and inside of your terminal, what address do I show up with my laptop on the internet? I can do this using like curl IP.me, and it says, hey, this address is yours, right? So like 3883, whatever. And I can plug this into Whois. So like Whois, basically like a telephone book. And this tells me, hey, this address belongs to the Amsterdam RAI, and guess where we are?
Yeah, exactly.
In the Amsterdam RAI. So
you see the AS number and everything.
Right, exactly. So I see the route, which is this prefix, this /24, and I see the origin, which is like this AS number, and I can take this one, copy it, go back to my routing device, and now I can query the database of BGP and say, hey, how do I actually get from the origin of this system where this BGP process is running to the address that I show on my laptop on the internet? And I do this by querying the prefix path using a regex. So I can say show IP BGP regex, and then I need to put in the AS number and say, hey, I need to end up there. This is where I put in the regex. So it needs to be at the end of that thing, the $sign. And then it goes and takes a second or so, and it shows me 7 paths how to get from the original system to the autonomous system of the RAI. And as I said, this is basically my personal looking glass.
I mean, it's amazing because I know you said looking glass, but it's like running your own personal BGP instance on the internet. Which,
yeah, right. I mean, it's to be fair, it's read only, right? So I cannot publish anything, and it's just like I get a feed and I get to see all these routes, but it's kind of it's a read only thing.
But I've got to ask you now, how did you set up the BGP pairing? Because obviously you're running BGP on your router,
right,
within CML, and you're pairing to someone who's got the full feed. So how did you set up the BGP pairing?
Yeah, this is a service that a friend of mine who works at Cisco offers. So it's something where you can establish that connection, and it's a one-way thing, obviously, because no one can connect my router from the outside. So his router, the other side, cannot connect to me. So because of the NAT thing going on, the only way is me connecting to him, right? So, but yeah, I mean, it works.
I mean, it's amazing because you got all these looking glasses on the internet, but if someone's studying for their NP or IE or something, I mean, the fact that you can do that, like just get a full feed and run it on your laptop, I mean, that's really impressive.
Running on my laptop inside of a VM on my laptop inside of CML.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's a bit of like the Inception thing.
Exactly, it's Inception. And it's 980,000 odd routes, so the full table.
Right.
So if someone's studying, wants to learn BGP, like you did there, you did regular expressions.
Right.
You have to learn like about $sign, a caret, etc., to filter your AS statements, etc. I mean, there's no better way to learn than get that full feed. And obviously, you could build a lab, right? So you could build a lab getting your full feed on the one router, and then use prefixes or whatever, and distribute only certain routes into your internal CML network.
Yeah,
and then do all
that's
kinds of
fun
filtering.
begins,
That's
right?
where it's a lot of fun, right? Because you can decide, okay, I only want routes from Microsoft or Cisco or whatever, and then just filter that into your lab, and then manipulate it rather than fake routes. Because normally when you study for CCIE, you have to do a bunch of fake things. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bazillion of opportunities and things that you can do and study with a system like this. And as I said before, containers open up another world, and that's the great thing.
Question, Ralph, when do we get access to this?
Typically, the release cycle, the cadence that we want to release new software is like half a year. So we typically release something for the Cisco Live events, or that is somewhat in line with the Cisco Live events. We released 2.8 in November. So we are releasing this one probably around Cisco Live US, give or take. So that's the plan.
I mean, that's something for everyone to look forward to, right? I think there's going to be a lot of people shouting. Please put in the comments below, what do you think about this? Because having Docker just opens it entirely. Ralph, that's crazy. I love that. Are there any other nuggets that you're hiding from us, or any other things that are coming?
So one of the things that a lot of people have been asking for is, saving state of images. So let's assume you have a Linux installation and there is no real textual representation of the config like on a router, right? So you cannot extract that configuration, especially when you install a package and put a config file here, a config file there. So in the past, we would have relied on Cloud Init entirely to redo it from scratch.
Yeah.
So with 2.9, there's also a feature that allows you to take a snapshot.
That's huge.
And
That's
then
huge, yeah.
use this as a template for when you bring it up again. Then you have the package installed and already configured. So that is also something that is going to be part of 2.9. And maybe I should say, there is always this kind of caveat where, things might go wrong. So and some things might not ship. So right now, this is the plan, right?
But I mean, that's great. So I mean, if I've got a VM and I install Python and Ansible and a whole bunch of other stuff for a lab, I don't want to keep installing that every time I start my lab. So now I can snapshot it. And
I mean, there's ways how you could have done it before, but this makes it much more easier.
So Ralph, there are different versions of CML. You've got Enterprise and the Personal Edition, which we're talking about now. I mean, I was so happy to hear about free. I mean, that's huge. So we've got free, personal, but obviously for enterprise customers, what have you got any other cool stuff that you've added to the enterprise version?
Well, in the enterprise version, there is some huge change regarding the permission system. Right now, we just had two permissions: you're a regular user and you're an admin. The regular user is kind of restricted, cannot create users, of course. Admin can do everything.
Yep.
And with 2.9, we are introducing a more fine-grained permission system where you have steps in between where you can tune the permissions of a user, whether they can, for example, read a lab or start nodes or are not allowed to start nodes or change configuration. So there is a bunch of permissions and they are configurable now with 2.9. So it's much more fine-grained.
That's brilliant.
Maybe one more thing. I'm not sure if this is worth mentioning. This is something I did it for my personal pleasure.
I love it. Yeah, go on. Tell us what is it about?
It's the ability to put in a custom font into your terminal.
That's nice. Now that is important.
So this is something where I just it's just this Courier whatever font, which is it sucks, right?
Yep.
So I put in something where I said, hey, I want to be able to select which font is actually using. And so I can put in my whatever. I use JetBrains Mono, which is the font, the go-to font, right? So and I want that font, right? So I cannot do that.
I love it. Ralph, I love talking to you. I love hearing about CML.
Awesome.
I mean, this product, I love it. It's fantastic. It helps so many people change their lives. It allows people like me who are creating content just to expand the content that we're creating. Thanks so much for putting all the work in. Really appreciate you sharing about this.
Thanks for having me again.